Hi there. Welcome to Block Talk Live with Deanna and Quinn. I'm Deanna Hansen. I'm a certified athletic therapist and the founder of Block Therapy.
And my name is Quinn Castellane. I'm the lead block therapist and a natural bodybuilder.
Today we're going to be talking about cellulite. When I'm talking about fascia and body work, cellulite is something that I just love sharing because it's not a function of size. It's not a function of tone. You know very well that there's people in the gym that are super built, that are super fit looking.
Fit looking, yeah.
But they still have cellulite.
Totally. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So you can see marathon runners with cellulite. Cellulite is not a function of fat. Cellulite is a function, though, of fascia. And what I love about talking about fascia is that this system is absolutely ingenious. The fascia is the connective tissue connecting us from head to toe. It's like the eggshell of the egg. So the goal is to have every one of our 100 trillion cells perfectly aligned. If every one of our 100 trillion cells is perfectly aligned, every cell has an optimal amount of blood and oxygen flow, as well as it's kept clean lifelong. The reality is, though, we don't have cells that are properly aligned because of three reasons. Injury, which creates scarring, surgery, which creates scarring, and most importantly, unconscious posture and breathing. Because this is one of those things that over the course of our lifetime slowly accumulates. So I've learned over my years of doing fascia work that posture really is the be-all and end-all of how we look, how we feel, and how we function. Because when we have perfect alignment, which nobody does, but when we do, every single one of our 100 trillion cells is optimally fed. And oxygen is the most important nutrient. The brain will die in 5 minutes if it's not oxygenated properly. And every single one of our cells is the same. So most people are walking around only feeding 10 to 20% of their cells proper amounts of oxygen. So gravity's winning. Gravity is ultimately what's causing pain, aging, and disease, and ballooning of tissue. So this is going to be something that we're going to be discussing today and giving you solutions as to what you can do to prevent as well as say goodbye to cellulite forever. Forever. Do you have anything you want to share?
Well, I just wanted to, I love how Deanna said posture is pretty well everything. It's like how we look, how we appear. If I'm just going to quickly bring us to the bodybuilding side, if you're on stage and you could be a female in bikini, you could be men's physique, you could be a bodybuilder. If you don't know how to pose, you don't know how to present yourself, you're going to look not good compared to other people who have been practicing. It all comes down to posture, posing, and kind of how you look. So that kind of just tied in beautifully with that component as well.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go through a couple of postural things that we unconsciously do and how that is actually going to really create cellulite, and then what again we can do for that. So I'm going to walk a little closer to the camera because I really want to bring the attention to my thighs. Now, people sometimes have cellulite on their butt, on their belly, on their arms, but the legs is really, especially for women, it seems to be one of those areas that we really want to target. And why I'm so passionate about sharing, though, about cellulite is because of, yes, we don't like the way it looks, but more importantly, what it means to our cellular health. Cellulite is ultimately the fascia holding on to the bone to try to keep us properly aligned, but those grips block blood and oxygen flow to cells on the other side. So that's not only an indication of, it's not only about appearance, it's about cellular health, because everything on the other side, if we have cellulite, is being starved. And it doesn't have to be. We can change that with what we're going to be sharing today. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to just talk a little bit about proper posture and what most people do. So I'm always talking about sort of general things here, but I'm going to walk a little bit closer to you. And okay, so first of all, I want to talk about what proper posture is. We should have equal weight on both feet. We should also have 60% of our body weight on our heels. The reality is, though, that most people have about 80% of their body weight on the balls of their feet, and because we're dominant on one side of the body, we tend to shift our body to the less dominant side to keep that dominant side free for action. So 70% of the population is right-handed. So this is a very typical stance that you tend to see. And I'm just going to tuck my shorts in here just a little bit so you can see the upper thigh, because I really want to bring your attention to what happens when we don't have proper alignment. So if you just notice here for a moment, if I'm standing correctly, we've got, I mean, and again, when I say I'm standing correctly, I'm by no means in perfect alignment, but I've come a long way. And that's why I feel very positive about sharing this with you. I also love the fact that I have so much more to go still, because I can still continue to improve. But if you notice how the legs look here when I'm standing in this way, compared to when I shift. So the first thing I want to bring your attention to is this line here. What's happening is I shift my center of gravity, I'm getting all this tissue migrating over here and bulking up through here. With this leg, my tissue is winding over this way. So what are the adductor muscles end up migrating over to the front. And because the body doesn't want us to fall out of balance, the fascia grips and adheres to bone to try to stop that. So again, it's a protective measure. It's not a bad thing, but what it's doing is it's letting us know that there's an issue in our balance and we want to bring our center of gravity back. The challenge though is that that fascia is going to grip and seal with a force of up to 2,000 pounds per square inch. And the seal is magnetic. So I just want to talk to you about magnetics for a second, because really block therapy is all about magnetically releasing the seal. So we have magnets here. If I try to pull these magnets apart in a linear way, I struggle. If I twist and turn, it comes apart with ease. So when we do block therapy, the beauty is that we're getting down all the way to the bone and we're creating these twists so that we can release that seal off the bone. And it's that seal that's ultimately creating the dimple, which is what cellulite is. It's also that seal that's creating the block to blood and oxygen flow.
Exactly.
Right. Where was I? I was going to share something before.
That's perfect. But even just, you can just think, like, to put this into really simple terms, as soon as we fall out of alignment, as soon as we shift our body weight to one side, it can be typically your less dominant side, your tissue, your fascia is very intuitive, it's actually very genius, and it will grip. It's actually trying to do us a favor. So it's gripping and hooking onto the bone to prevent us from falling further out of alignment. But again, that's causing the dimpling effect, but that's also causing lack of blood and oxygen flow to that area. So it's causing health issues in general, but people think it's just appearance.
Right, and what I've observed, because all I do is I observe posture and I try to connect the dots to make sense of things. I have observed that people that stand like a duck have more cellulite, and when I say stand like a duck, externally rotated at their feet, compared to people that are more pigeon-toed. And what I've, come to understand with this is lots of people, like we can see people splayed way out. The further out of alignment we go, the further away from our center of gravity we are. So the more the tissue's gripping and holding, trying to create that balance in our body.
But also the thicker the thighs.
The thicker the thighs, because we're compressing down more. I work on people's legs, and sometimes you can literally feel the layer after layer. And I'm sure there's lots of women in particular, men too, but women, because we're so much more, well, we have more fat, so we can feel it. But we can feel those striations going around the tissue this way, and that's the fascia winding down over time.
Totally. Yeah.
So, but I've observed, because we can go so far out of alignment in this manner, but most people aren't internally rotated this far. So we typically don't go that far. So when you see somebody pigeon-toed, they're not as far away from balance as somebody that stands like a duck.
Exactly.
Also, when we stand like a duck, it really causes the entire pelvis to shift, and it's creating this dysfunction in the pelvis. So one of the things about block therapy is we don't just address the target site. So, a lot of people, they're going to have cellulite on the back of their leg here. If I only work the area where I have the cellulite, that's not going to take care of the problem, because fascia connects us from head to toe. With block therapy, we work from head to toe to make sure that we align the entire body as well as create that proper diaphragmatic breathing.
It's that whole pulling. I wish I had like a sheet right now or something, but I remember Dan explained this to me maybe a year or two ago. So grab my hand. So if you were to pull my arm, so she's gripping onto my hand, but if she's pulling my arm, where I feel this can be in my rear delt, can be in my back, bit in my neck, but what's gripping it is her hand. So it's like how the fascia works. Again, you can be seeing the dimpling on the back of the legs, but that's not what's causing it. We have to find this that's causing this.
Cause sites versus pain sites.
Exactly.
So the cause sites are going to be all through the body, because how we fall out of balance over time is a function of unconscious posture over however old we are. But when we're speaking directly about cellulite in the legs, that adductor area is definitely a cause site for everybody, because again, it's more people that externally rotate and fall out of alignment this way that actually have cellulite. So Quinn, let's demonstrate that adductor position so we can show people how simple it is to release that seal. I'm just going to get out of your way here.
So very simple. I'm just going to kick my left leg out to the side here with the intention of placing the block on its side in approximately the middle of the adductors. And of course you can work this entire area. So once I'm here, once I've positioned the block here, I'm rotating my body back towards the front, so I'm facing the floor, and now this is directly targeting the adductors, the inner thigh.
So I'm just going to let you kind of hang out here and play for a little bit, and I just want to talk about the reason that we use wood for the block. So when we're working through layers of fascia, again, you have to understand that we're working through our entire lifetime of migration. We want to bring everything back though, but we have to release that tissue again from the bone, and it's that deep, it's at the bone. So if we're using a plastic modality, it's not going to be as effective as moving through the layers of tissue all the way to the bone. But bone and wood share a similar density. So when we are lying on the block here, allowing our body to sink into the block, we're actually melting through those adhesions, through those layers of fascia, creating that release here. And if you notice, these are always micro movements, so it might not even be that perceptible to see. But Quinn isn't just being totally static now. What he's doing is he's searching for the pain, because pain equals restriction. And that's another great thing about doing this. You get to find in your own body where those restrictions are, because they go deep and they're chaotic. They're all over the place, because again, we have an accumulation of years of unconscious posture and breathing, injuries that have accumulated, potential surgeries if you've had any. All of those events in your life, they actually change the physical fascia in its alignment, and they cause migration. Wherever there's density, gravity is going to manipulate it at a faster pace. So if you have a scar, that's an area that you need to know gravity is going to grip that scar, and it's going to wind it down toward the ground faster. So we want to work through those scars with the block. We can actually put the space back into scarring, whether from injury or surgery, by doing this work, because this is a practice of patience and persuasion. We're not forcing the body to change. We're allowing the tissue to melt. I always use the analogy, if I had an ice block with a butterfly in the center, if I take an ice pick to get to that butterfly, chances are by the time I've gotten to that butterfly, I've probably damaged a wing. You know, something's broken on that butterfly. But if I take my hands and I melt that block until I get to the butterfly, it's intact. That's persuasion versus force. So most people today are forcing their body to try to make the changes that we want. So again, if I have cellulite and I go to the gym and I'm working out like crazy and I'm not getting rid of the cellulite, that's an indication that we're not doing what we need to do to get rid of the cellulite. We can't force the body, but we can persuade the body through melting. There's a fantastic video. It's a 5-minute video called The Fuzz Speech. I highly recommend everybody watches it, because it really demonstrates how the adhesions develop over time between the layers of fascia. Dr. Gil Headley, PhD, he's the one that is talking on a cadaver about the fascia. And he actually says that as the fascia becomes more thick and frozen, it shares that it's really time that's accumulating in the tissue. So as we work through those layers and we melt through those adhesions, we're literally taking time out of the tissue. So think about that. We're taking time out of tissue. Everybody's looking for the fountain of youth, and that's what it's about. It's about putting the space back that we lose through time. So as we get older, we get shorter and wider. And why? Because we are compressing under that constant force of gravity. We don't recognize the constants. If something is constant, we take it for granted. So we take gravity for granted, and unfortunately, when we do that, it pulls us in the direction of our density. And that isn't what we want to do, because that causes pain, aging, and disease. However, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So we have a counterforce to gravity, and it's the full conscious exhalation, because when we're exhaling fully, the diaphragm, this plate of muscle that moves up and down in the core of the body, it moves up with the exhalation. So with block therapy, we make the exhalation phase the focus. When we exhale fully, we're removing the past from the tissue, the byproducts of functioning, like exhaust from a car. We don't want that to stay in the tissue. We want to get rid of that negative emotion, toxins, anything that we ingest through our food, our breathing, our water. We're always pulling in dirt, garbage, toxins into the system. Through that full exhalation, that's how we remove it from the system. So part of block therapy is really getting back to that full conscious exhalation that becomes what we target, so that we can ultimately counter gravity as we go through time. Now, Quinn, as you're doing this, how is this feeling to you?
I'm actually feeling a gush of heat and warmth kind of going down my leg all the way to my foot. So my foot was cold. Now it's actually feeling kind of warm.
Wow.
But the pain, I'm not going to lie, when I first got on here, it was pretty intense, but it went away very fast.
And the reason is pressure overrides pain. The pressure fibers are larger in diameter than the pain fibers. So wherever we have pain, you know how intuitively if you bump yourself or you hurt yourself, you go and you rub it. Intuitively, we actually know what we need to do for our body. So when we're doing block therapy here, we move into the pain, but because we're doing it in a patient-controlled way, we are connecting to those pressure fibers. So people often say they become addicted to block therapy because it feels so good, it's so calming. It's not about not feeling pain, it's about understanding that there's a pain-fear cycle. So we can be afraid of pain, which then ramps the sensation of pain up to a very scary space, or we can understand the value of pain, and then we can use that as our guide to move through our tissue and to get back to proper cellular alignment. So again, that's the beauty of block therapy, is we teach you how to figure out in your own body where those cause sites are, so that if you have that ballooning tissue, you find what's causing it, because we can't just work where that is. So we want you to have the success that you need to have in order to overcome these obstacles. And again, appearance and cellular health, they go hand in hand. So my goal is to help people be healthy and to share what has changed for me, because when I started with this, it was because of my anxiety and depression. That's what sparked this whole journey that has now led to block therapy. The side effects for me: weight loss, improved tissue appearance, energy, creativity. Like, it's amazing when we take out those restrictions from our tissue and we start feeding our cells, they communicate more effectively with us. We just become a higher vibration. We become a more intuitive individual. We're connected more strongly to our inner self. And again, we're here talking about cellulite, but it's so much more than that. When we do block therapy, we are truly changing the physiology of our body, because when we start to oxygenate our cells 6 times the amount, that's how much different breathing diaphragmatically is in oxygenation compared to breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, which is where most people are breathing because we've collapsed into the core. So 6 times the amount of oxygen from proper breathing is what moves into the system, and that changes everything. We start awakening. So we aren't just awakening our physical tissue, we're awakening our mind, we're awakening our spirit, we're awakening everything, and it's an amazing journey. So if cellulite is something that you are wanting to overcome, this is a solution, because we get to those cause sites as well as the pain sites. We create proper cellular alignment. So we take away those hooks. And that's ultimately, if you're watching this, is probably what led you here, because you have cellulite and you don't want the look of it anymore. But also know that as you change the appearance, you are improving your cellular health in general overall. Quinn, is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, it's pretty crazy because, and I know we've mentioned this today, but I can see the most, like when I've traveled for competitions, I've seen every type of physique out there, and I've seen some of the best physiques, and I'm talking more so about females, but they still will have cellulite, and they'll still even come to me. And I remember I was talking to a guy at the gym, and I ended up talking about cellulite, and a lady passed by, and she was a competitor, and she's like, you know what you're talking about, like that's really interesting. And I'm like, well, that's the thing, like people don't know what it's about. They're doing kind of the incorrect thing. They think it's all about diet and exercise, but if you're working out more and incorrectly, then you're actually going to add to the cellulite.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to release the grip, train correctly, and that's going to totally change the appearance. So I see people, especially off season. Off season's kind of like when you're not competing at the time. It's your building phase. People have cellulite, and it's everywhere. And this is something where you reduce the cellulite year round, forever. You get rid of the cellulite forever, and then you grow, then you change, then your cells are aligned, your tissue looks healthy, you look healthy. It just changes everything.
So there's two things posturally I want to share with you that you can do and implement immediately to make changes. Because again, ultimately, we can be unconscious in the way that we sit, we can fall out of balance. You know, as I sit here, my tissue starts to do this if I'm unconscious, and I start to collapse into myself. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to understand how to sit properly. So what I'll do before I sit is I'll actually grab my tissue, I'll pull it around, because ultimately it's come too far this way. And I don't want this in my middle thigh, because this isn't supposed to be here, it's supposed to be over here. So I'll actually grab it and I'll align my legs properly. And then I will take my block, and if you don't have a block, find something else that you can squeeze. And I will hold it here, because the adductor muscles, they've kind of been forgotten when we stand like a duck. They've migrated. We want to bring them back with strength into proper alignment. This is something you can do working on your computer, watching TV. I drive with this. What is amazing about this is as I practiced this more and more and more, not only did my legs change, my core changed.
Totally.
I realized this is where core strength comes from.
100%.
I used to do 400 sit-ups a day, and it made my belly bigger. It made my low back more sore. As I started to strengthen my adductors more and more, I was lifting up, because this is required for proper pelvic alignment. So something as simple as doing this as much as you can, and then when you're not squeezing the block, just sit this way. You want to have your knees at least 90-degree angle. As soon as we tuck them under, now again, we're getting that migration, which as we sit unconsciously, especially if you're at a desk for 8 hours a day, that's going to create a lot of these issues. So at your desk, you can go in that opposite direction, and you can start to bring your tissue back to proper alignment.
100%.
And how easy is this?
It's very, very simple.
And how tiring is this?
It can, that's it. How easy is it, but how tiring is it? It's the simplest thing you can do, but if it's like your first time, you're going to notice how weak the adductors are, because there's such a disconnect to that area, because the connective tissue or fascia has taken over, compressed, and blocked those cells of life. So we're literally bringing them back to life. Now, I did want to add one point here. It's very, okay, I'm gonna phrase this correctly. So it can be difficult. I talk to so many people, and I talk about posture, and they're like, Quinn, how do you just sit like that? I remember asking this to Deanna when I first started about 3-4 years ago. It's like, it looks so simple for you, but for me, it's difficult. Like, I feel like I'm struggling. I'm like, once you release the seal, it is so simple. You're in balance. You're just sitting here. You're just floating. This is the comfortable space. So many people want to do this, whatever it is. But as soon as I started doing block therapy, the 21-day program, it targets all these areas, so you're out of the way. You'll notice the first day of the 21-day program, if you haven't started that, you're gonna notice that difference immediately, and then you're gonna be able to stand correctly, sit correctly, and everything just works so beautifully.
And I want to share, if you can go back to that collapse. Okay, so stay there for a moment, because again, the diaphragm, it's a plate of muscle. It's the internal engine. When it's working properly, our tissue is heated. Warm tissue is healthy, frozen tissue, not healthy. So when we're breathing properly, this muscle is supposed to be moving up and down in the core of the body. How is that going to happen when we collapse and fall out of alignment? So now, again, the challenge is, as Quinn just said, when you try to lift up, 2,000 pound per square inch magnetic seal holding you down. So you work at it, but it's like, oh my God, I'm so tired, I can't do this. But once you work through that rib cage, and again, it's fast, it's amazing. And then when you lift up, now we've got that breathing. So each time you lift a little bit more, there's more oxygen, which makes you lighter. Then you lift a little bit more oxygen, which makes you lighter, and then it becomes exponential.
And your waist gets smaller, and your core gets longer.
And your breasts lift. Because when I don't have a floor, they sag too, and who wants that?
Exactly. Hey, it's the truth. It's so true.
Okay,
yeah.
So this, no matter what you do, if you add this into your life, this is going to make a big difference in many, many aspects and many things. And I want to show you also how to stand. So again, if you don't have a block, you can use a book. But standing, again, it's not what we do once a day, once a week that makes a difference. It's what we do all the time that adds up, that makes the difference in our health, function, and appearance. So again, we want to have 60% of our body weight on our heels, equal weight on both feet. And we want to have slightly bent knees. People tend to hyperextend their legs. What happens is my pelvis rolls forward. I have no support for tissue here because now I've locked my knees. So as soon as I bend my knees, everything changes, and now I'm supporting my body weight with my muscles as opposed to locking my knees and making my joints hold up my weight, which is going to cause things down the road like arthritis. So one very simple exercise you can do, again, block or book, whatever it is, put it as high up as you can between the thighs, stand with feet right under your hip joints, and where your hips are, your hip joints are here. They're not here. They're right here in your pelvis. You want your feet over top of that. You want your feet facing straight forward, knees slightly bent. Then we want to squeeze the block. This is that internal rotation. This is going to be that similar action to when we're sitting squeezing the block. And then the last one, and this will sound a little funny, we want to squeeze the anus. And I'm going to turn sideways so you can see what this does. When I don't have that action happening, I'm still tilted forward a little bit. As soon as it's called rooting. As soon as I root, now I become taller. I can move my center of gravity back onto my heels. And now I can move forward in life without gravity affecting me as quickly. So that's the exercise. And then the goal, this is how we stand all the time. We don't want to fall in. And you're going to fall in. I still fall in. It's been years. But you catch yourself. The more you do it, the faster you catch yourself and you bring yourself back to balance. And that truly will change your life.
Totally. Well, and when you practice it, then you can be, and you understand these components to stand correctly, then you can be anywhere. You can be waiting in line at the grocery store. Then you're going to be like, posture. What is it? Okay, here we go. Connected. All right. So if you remember yourself doing that once, then you're going to continue to remember. You're going to keep triggering that to yourself. It's like the breathing diaphragmatically. You got to constantly remind yourself. So it's becoming conscious of how you breathe, but we're talking about posture, it's becoming conscious of how you stand. So you can be cooking, you can be doing the dishes, you can be standing in the shower, you can just be standing, you can be anywhere. Try as much as you can. Remember this. And when you do that, you're going to stand taller. You're actually going to just look healthier. You're going to look almost more, this is going to sound funny, you're going to look more alpha. You're just going to look healthier.
Confident.
That's
like
exactly
the difference between me talking to you this way and me talking to you this way.
Yeah.
I feel like I make more sense, even though I'm saying the same words. I feel like I believe myself more than when I'm talking to you this way, where I'm looking out of one eye. I want to be present. I want to be seeing you with both eyes. I want to be in control of my words and my thoughts and my actions. I don't want to be kind of partially present. I want to be fully present.
Exactly.
And that's what this does. So, what we want you to do If this program makes sense to you, it's the 21-day block blitz. That's our introductory program. It covers the whole body. It gives you the 15-minute per day habit. Everybody has 15 minutes per day to work on your health, and honestly, this will change your life. If this is something that you're not sure about, go to unblockyourbody.com and download your free gift. Our 3 steps to unblock your body from pain, pressure, fat, and fatigue.
Yeah.
You can also fill out an assessment form. I'll phone you. If you have questions and you're not sure if this is for you, you're concerned about some things, myself or one of our block therapists will get on that phone with you and we will talk to you about what is right for you and if this makes sense for you. And in reality, it pretty much makes sense for everybody.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're here. We are present to be communicating with you.
Totally.
Anything else to add?
Well, again, just questions. If you want to call the office, if you want to email info@fluidisometrics.com, or you can, of course, call the office. But the most ideal thing for you to do is to either go to unblockyourbody.com or to the 21-day block
And
blitz.
fill out those health assessments
Yeah.
so we can actually get on the phone and we can talk to you.
Download that book,
Yeah.
read the book. You're going to understand it more. You're going to have it in writing so that you can review it, go back to it. Okay, that makes sense. It's a great read.
And of course, blocktherapy.com, our website, we have
Yeah.
tons of information, tons of testimonial,
Yeah.
and all of our programs are listed and described there. So
Perfect.
thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this, and thank you, Quinn.
Thank you very much, Deanna.
Okay, and next week we are going to be talking with Heather Whitlaw, one of our other lead block therapists, about iliotibial band syndrome in runners. So that will be next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central. Have a wonderful day.